Honorable judges, fellow students, and parents, good morning. What do you think of when Father Nick talks about stewardship? For many, stewardship means writing a check. It is essentially equivalent to church annual membership dues. But is that all that stewardship is? The parable of the poor widow's offering contains powerful imagery that gives insight into the meaning of stewardship. The parable appears in both the Gospels of Luke and Mark. The preceding passage sets the scene. Jesus is outside the temple and observes the scribes in long robes who love greetings in the marketplace and enjoy the best seats in the synagogue and at feasts. Jesus does not temper his disapproval of these individuals and states that for a pretense they make long prayers. These are showmen who strive to be the center of attention and work to set themselves apart from the common people. Jesus watches them as they make sure everyone notices as they put their gifts in the treasury with a great fanfare. These are men of wealth and power who do all they can to show everyone how generous they are. It is in this context the parable of the widow's offering is told. A poor widow makes her way to the treasury. She puts in 2 mites, probably equal in value to 2 cents a day. No one but Jesus pays any attention to the tattered woman. Jesus does notice and calls to his disciples. Truly, I say that this poor widow has put in more than all. While the wealthy men have given more in monetary value, Jesus recognizes that the widow, despite her poverty, has given all the livelihood that she had. Is the lesson of this parable that it's not about the absolute amount we give to the church that is important, but is the relative amount? Perhaps we should take down the list of donors in the church hallway that is grouped by given amount and replace it with a list designated by the amount given divided by total wealth. So you give 25% of your wealth to the church, regardless of absolute amount, get your name on a plaque and a designated table to sit at during the fellowship hour. While that might seem more fair, I believe that this interpretation misses what the parable tells us about stewardship. Why do we give our time, talent, and money to the church? Is it to impress other people? Is it to impress the priests and feel important? Jesus makes it clear the fate of those who publicize their charity for their own self-aggrandizement in several passages of the Bible. Most clearly in Matthew 6. Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. When you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets to be honored by others. If you do, Jesus proclaims, you have no reward from your Father in heaven. Clearly, giving to the church to impress other people is not true stewardship. I've heard it say that the true test of character is what you do when no one is watching. Of course, God is always watching. Once again from Matthew 6. When you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. But let's pretend that God is not watching. Would we give as much or give it all? Is my decision of how much to give based on what's in it for me? Perhaps it's just a silly hypothetical. After all, even my sole motivation in giving is to the church is to save my own soul, and I couldn't care less about other people. The result is that the church gets money and I go to heaven. It's all good. The ultimate win-win. I don't believe that's a win-win scenario, and I don't believe that this type of giving represents stewardship. First off, God knows you better than anyone else, including yourself. As written in Samuel, the Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. So God knows what motivates you. But even beyond that, stewardship is the selfless act of giving that comes from the love of God. Stewardship is defined on the Greek Orthodox website of America as the call of the faithful to share willingly the gifts that God has bestowed upon them, including sharing these gifts for God's work. Stewardship is our active commitment to use all our time, talent, and treasure for the benefit of humankind in grateful acknowledgement of Christ's redeeming love. Stewardship is not a calculated effort to enhance your own image. It grows out of embracing and internalizing the love of God, which is then reflected in these acts of love for others. Stewardship is about helping others. In the parable of the widow's offering, the hypocrisy of the wealthy men who exploit the powerless and then give a small portion back to the church is made clear when the widow, who is nothing but 2 mites, is presented. The men's gifts have done nothing for her. She represents the people who these men should be helping, but instead they exploit the poor to achieve wealth that allows them to give large amounts of money to the church. Clearly, their motivation for giving is not to benefit mankind, it is to benefit themselves. This is not stewardship. To appreciate the stark contrast between the scribes and the widow, we need to look at the parable from the widow's perspective. She is fully aware of her status in society. She is at the bottom. She does not think anyone is watching her. She's not even aware that Jesus is watching her. She's not a follower of Jesus. She's not even acknowledged Jesus. But of course, Jesus is watching. Jesus is God's presence on earth. But the widow is not aware of him. And she gives anyway. She has no expectations from her gift, no illusions of payback other than the love of God. She's embraced the spirit of stewardship. She's giving all that she has, not to promote herself, but because she loves God. The love of God is its own reward.